everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrianne Murchison, and welcome to episode 87 of the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. I am coming to you today with two separate topics. One is more on the spiritual side, and another is a follow-up of our last episode. This week has been a week of a lot of reflection for me, and I wanted to share some things that I've been going through. I've really got a lot on my plate, and I wanted to share some things, but I wanted to come through them and then, be able to say, hey, this is what I came through. But I'm not through them all yet, and so I can't say that, and I'm not going to go into the things that I'm experiencing, but my point really is to talk about just my relationship with God through this process that I'm in. And on social media, I see a lot of, and have for years, been drawn to a lot of inspirational messages that I see on social media, a lot of quotes and different words of inspiration. And I share some from time to time. But my podcasting space, as far as spirituality, is to really inform and share through the insights that I have come to through my experiences, because I have been through some real ups and downs over the years. The only thing that has gotten me through them is my relationship with God. And I'm not always as connected as I want to be. Like, I have an established awareness of my relationship with God, and that's always there no matter what. But there are times that I think, as many of us, I could go through my day and I'm not as connected as I want to be or as I intend to be. And there's a few things that are really, really resonating for me right now. And it's funny. I like a lot of different spiritual teachers. My main spiritual teacher or area of study is A Course in Miracles. I really enjoy Marianne Williamson when she is lecturing around A Course in Miracles, but I love the late Wayne Dyer. I really enjoy Deepak Chopra. Someone that I've been listening to for about 9 months is Abraham Hicks, who I've mentioned before. And Abraham Hicks is someone that I've been aware of for years. Love Abraham Hicks and you study her teachings. And she did not resonate for me until, like I said, about the last 9 months. What I realize about people who I see as true teachers, spiritual teachers, is that they may all have a different approach. They may all talk about things from different corners, but the underlying truth, I find this of spiritual faith, of religious faith also, the underlying truth of God or whoever we may call, the most divine presence, the underlying truth is all the same. The underlying truth is love, God is love, and real love is an extension of God, and we are an extension of God. So I'm bringing that up to say that there is this chapter in A Course in Miracles. It's called Rules of Decision. It's chapter 30, and it's Rules of Decision, and it talks about not making any decisions by yourself, and when we start our day, to have a vision of how we want that day to be, a general idea of direction that we would like that day to go in, but to really surrender it to God and just don't make any decisions alone. And if we don't do that, then we'll be just fine. And if we start feeling agita throughout the day, then it's because we made a decision by ourselves, and just, if that happens, just say, you know what, I must have decided wrongly. I'd like to choose again. Just things we could say to ourselves. And in listening to Abraham Hicks, she doesn't bring these words up in any way, but the concept is the same, because really it's about energy. And that is what she is talking about. And she does use the word energy from time to time, but mostly she talks about the feelings she suggests that we have around the thing that we desire. She suggests that before the thing happens, the feeling comes first. Energy, it has to manifest from something. So it has to manifest from your good energy. So I'm experiencing in real time how that is true. And I've known it, but now I just know it in a deeper way. And I've known it because I tend to be an empath. I am an empath, and I'm sensitive to other people's energy. So I know that energy is real, but to understand that energy, that God energy, and to feel that God energy is phenomenal. And I've had those experiences recently. And one thing that I'm finding out, despite what I just said, is we don't have to make ourselves feel good if we really don't feel good. Like if our heart hurts, we don't have to try to make ourselves feel good. We just have to be willing to experience that shift, or a shift. A couple of weeks ago, I was really, really upset about something. And I was just experiencing some angst with a friend of mine. And it was really, really bothering me. And I was talking to God about it. And I was upset about something related to this. And I was just upset in general. You know how you could be upset about a thing, and then I can feed that thing into something else. Oh, everything's wrong, and I was just upset. But I was really pouring my heart out to God, and I felt lousy. I felt really, really, really lousy. But I was pouring my heart out to God. I have alerts I put in my phone about 5 years ago. Almost 24 hours a day, a different alert will come up that will say a different spiritual saying. And one of them is, I can surrender to the Holy Spirit all things that hurt me. Something along that lines it says. And so that's what I was doing. I was just surrendering. I was just giving it all to God. I was just really, really upset. This person and I hadn't spoken. And the next morning when I woke up, when I opened my eyes, I felt a space. I felt a shift. The energy has shifted, and I felt a space, like an open, good, spiritual space between me and this person. And sure enough, within a couple of hours, we end up talking it out, and everything was fine. Everything was good. That's just one example. I'm just having a new willingness to give it all to God, to just give it all, and maybe I've just got sick and tired of being sick and tired, but I'm just giving it all to God. I'm giving him everything. And all of my problems are not solved, but I certainly feel a shift of feeling safe. I feel a shift in terms of my well-being. I'm still processing all of this. This week, I had food poisoning one evening, and it was crazy. I mean, I'm sitting on the couch watching a podcast, and all of a sudden my stomach starts bothering me. Before I know it, I am full-blown ill in every way you can think of. And I spent much of the evening, well, it lasted about 4 hours, where I was throwing up and other things. And I mean, I was in the bathroom on the floor beside the commode, and I would be, sweating profusely. I had no alcohol or any substance in me whatsoever. And yet I felt like I had been drinking because I kept falling off to sleep. And I was having like these vivid dreams. And songs by Martha Munizi, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but she's one of my favorite gospel singers. And so I listen to her a lot, and her songs are like playing in my thoughts as if I literally have them on my phone. And it's for about 4 hours. I felt like I was being thrown around the room. Like, I didn't literally feel like I was being thrown around the room, but metaphorically speaking, I felt like I was being thrown around the room because I just was really sick. You know, I'm vomiting and other things. 1 minute I'm doing that. The other minute I'm trying to do something else. And I move from one bathroom to the other bathroom, or I move to the couch, or I'm just on the floor. It was just crazy. And I was like, is this a come to Jesus experience that I'm having right now? But I think it's helped to push me forward and to be willing. I think I have a willingness with a capital W to give it all to God, to surrender it all to God, and to remember that I can't control Jack. I cannot control anything. I can have a desire. I can put it out there. I can give it to God. And I've had such blessings in my life. Every major blessing that I've had in my life was not my doing. It was not about me going about, well, I'm going to make this happen, and me doing that, and then that's a huge blessing. It's been me being on the path of doing what I want to do, what I want to make happen, and then the big blessing comes out of that. So having a willingness can shift the energy. That's what I'm finding for myself, to have a willingness to give it to God, to stay connected to God, and to be vocal for myself in my thoughts, in my prayers, to be expressive for me about my love for God and what I want for myself. I hope that this has made some kind of sense for anyone that Let's Start Healing resonates for. A friend of mine sent something to me that I want to read, because we just never know what people are going through. And this friend on Facebook is somebody that I've known forever, but it's not somebody that I talk to. And thank God we have Facebook to continue to be in touch. And this person sent something, and I didn't let that person know at all. Wow. I didn't say, how in the world could you possibly know that you would be hitting a home run for me if you sent this to me? And it says, and this is for anybody who needs to hear this. It says, even now, as broken as you may feel, you are still so strong. There's something to be said for how you hold yourself together and keep moving, even though you feel like shattering. Don't stop. This is your healing. It doesn't have to be pretty or graceful. You just have to keep going. And this is by Maxwell Diawo. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that last name correctly, but it's spelled Diawuoh. And that was pretty awesome to receive. So my message to you with this podcast is to say that energy is everything. We're moving in the direction of making that a real awareness. I don't think we make it an awareness enough. I mean, we say, oh, we like that person's energy. We understand if we walk into a room and the energy doesn't feel right. But how much do we actually use that in our lives? I know there's plenty of people who do, and I'm just trying to reinforce the truth of that. And when I speak to myself when I say this, to move with the intention of the right energy is even more important than words. It's the energy that people feel when we say the words. I was thinking earlier today about the telescope in space and looking at the new galaxies and the galaxies we know of and the galaxies we didn't know of. And one of the articles was mentioning Jupiter, and it was this image of Jupiter, and the article mentioned Mars and Saturn, and it had me thinking about astrology. And it's just so something how we're so blown away by the images that we saw recently, but, we'll diminish astrology. Astrology is becoming more and more acceptable in the mainstream, but it's not like a real part of the mainstream. And all astrology is about is energy. It's about energy and the energy of these planets and what that means and what that represents. So it's everything. Energy is everything. Love is an energy, and God is love. A story that I love to tell goes back to when I moved into my place that I'm living in now about 7 years ago. And the day after I moved in, there was a lot going on. I had friends and family come through to say hi, and I was getting things together in my new place, and I would do things and I would just be moving at a pace where I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing. And somehow I misplaced my keys. This was a Saturday, and I didn't realize it until late Saturday night. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to worry about it. I'll find them tomorrow. And so on Sunday, I could not find my keys. It was so frustrating. I could not find my keys, which included my car key, my keys to the place that I'm living and that I had moved out of. I got so frustrated that I tried to take a nap, and that really didn't do any good. And so I was just like, oh my God, I just do not know. And I hadn't been anywhere since I had used my keys last. So I knew that they had to be somewhere here at home. So after a while, I just said, I just need to calm down, meditate, and pray. And I went out on the deck. I sat down and I just started praying and meditating and reading. And after about 20 minutes, I get up, walk back inside. I go into the kitchen and I go and I need a garbage bag for some reason, and go up under the sink, pull out the box of garbage bags, and my keys fall on the floor out of the box of garbage bags. And I just stood there just staring for a second or two. It was just so amazing to me how everything had shifted once I just sat down, calmed my mind, and I just connected with my higher self, with God, with the Holy Spirit, with Jesus, just connected. And that just taking the time to do that has shifted the energy for me. And I got up, went inside, found my keys. There's no way I would have thought to look for my keys in the box of garbage bags. I absolutely had just been moving fast the night before and putting things away and dropped them in there. I think that is such a simple, easy experience for me of just a shift in energy. There's a line in A Course in Miracles that I really love, one of many, and it says, God's will is perfect happiness for me, and I can suffer only from the belief there is another will apart from His. God's will for me is perfect happiness. That's true for me. That's true for you, all of us. So I am going to shift right now, and there'll be more to come around this. I might have been a little too vague, but there'll be more to come on this. I want to shift and talk about my last episode 86, where I had the pleasure of bringing in my guest, Lori Gilbert, who is also my cousin and who is a retired manager of a family planning clinic in Buffalo, New York. And so we talked about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And one of my comments during that episode was how I felt frustrated and believed that this was something that was orchestrated by men, these male lawmakers, and trying to control women's bodies. I was talking in that vein. And so I have to acknowledge that I watched a few deep episodes on the topic of Roe v. Wade on Vice News, which you can find on YouTube. And I'll tell you the episode. I watched some really, really good ones. I'll tell you one of the main ones was on how the anti-abortion rights movement took down Roe. This episode was so informative, and it brings up a couple of things. In part, it focuses on the Christian legal organization called Alliance for Defending Freedom. And what I didn't know, and what I think a lot of people don't know, because I haven't found where this is really been focused on in mainstream media, which I work in Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. What this organization did systematically for years, and I urge you to go look up this episode, and I'll put a link in the show notes. For years, they approached state legislators, attorney generals, governors. They approached people who are anti-abortion and wanted Roe v. Wade overturned, and they wrote bills for them to put forth to be passed on to become law. Well, if they became law, and let's say they were challenged, which they were in some states, then the Alliance for Defending Freedom would appeal it and appeal it and appeal it until it went up to the Supreme Court. They were a major influence in the Supreme Court. And I'm going to tell you what I mean when I say major, in the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. So Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization is what led to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And the Alliance for Defending Freedom, they wrote the argument for that. What's revealed in the reporting of this Vice episode is this organization, they did this for many states. They've been working on this for years. The senior attorney with this organization is a woman, and there are many women who are affiliated with this organization, as well as men. And there's just so much that hasn't been reported. I had no idea. I mean, we've been hearing about the possibility of Roe v. Wade being overturned, but the reason why and how that could happen, I haven't found that to really be reported before I watched this Vice News segment, which was only about 30 minutes. And that's only one part of what this episode went into. So I invite you to go watch that episode. There's another episode filmed in Mississippi where the journalist is talking to teenagers, 3 who are pro-choice and 3 who want abortion to be illegal. And very powerful episode, very poignant episode. Also, in the first episode that I was telling you about, there's a woman that the journalist talked to from the University of California, San Francisco. She's a director of research, and they have been following women, talking to women for years, since 2007, in a study, women who had abortions. They've been calling them every 6 months. And one of the things that this woman said is that their study has found that women who were denied an abortion when they wanted to have one were 3 times as likely to be below poverty level now and have no money for their basic needs and had no opportunities for the kind of future that the women who were not denied an abortion had. And most of the women who were denied an abortion went on to have a child later in life. So, really powerful episode. One thing that struck me, aside from the information, as I said, was I don't understand some of the things that we don't report in mainstream media, or why some of the people in Congress, Democrats, don't talk about this. How can they not know that their colleagues who have a different opinion than they do represent states that have these laws that were written up by the Alliance for Defending Freedom? How can they not know that? Of course they must know that. Why has that not been talked about? It's just odd. It's so, and this isn't the only thing. I mean, what's so funny to me too is a good friend of mine called me this week as he was watching the hearings on CNN, and he was really bringing up the same point, but not about overturning of Roe v. Wade. He was bringing it up about January 6th. And there were just things that he feels that journalists must know, the mainstream media must know, but doesn't report. He's asking me, why is that? That's true, right? Because it seems obvious to me, right? That's what he's saying to me. He says, it just seems like there's a wink and a nod and things just go unreported. So very, very interesting stuff to me, but I definitely felt that I needed to come back to you and say that I stand corrected from what I said last week about this being a thing that, you know, I want to put at the feet of lawmakers in Washington as if they just did this on their own. There was so much help. This has been a plan in the making for at least 20 years. So that is what's up for this episode. I want to ask you to please subscribe to the podcast. You can find all of the episodes available on traditional podcast platforms. Let me know what you think. Listen to some of our previous episodes. So many conversations I have had and will continue to have with people about their spiritual path and their relationship and their connection to their higher power. So until next time, let's start healing.